Today's story is about a homeowners association that thought they could control everything. They wanted me to rehome my dog, they tried to fine me with bogus late fees, and they treated me like I was their personal ATM. But what they didn't know was that I don't back down easily. And when I fight back, I fight smart. This is the story of how one HOA went from trying to ruin my life to paying dearly for underestimating me. So sit back, relax, and let me take you through this insane journey. When I first bought my house, I was over the moon. After years of saving, budgeting, and living in apartments where you could hear your neighbor sneeze through the wall, I finally had a place of my own. A cozy two-bedroom house with a fenced yard, in a supposedly quiet, well-kept neighborhood. Of course, that well-kept part came with strings attached, the HOA. At first, I didn't think much of it. Sure, they had rules about trash cans, lawn height, and fence paint colors. Annoying? Yes. Deal-breaking? Not really. I figured as long as I paid my dues and kept my yard clean, they'd leave me alone. But I was wrong. Very wrong. Because the HOA didn't just want money, they wanted control. I had a dog. His name is Buddy, a golden retriever mix with more love in him than most people I know. He's gentle, he's friendly, and he's basically my best friend. About 3 months after I moved in, I got a letter from the HOA. Read. Per Section 14.2 of the Community Guidelines, no resident may keep a pet that is deemed a nuisance, a danger, or in violation of community standards. Please rehome your animal within 30 days to avoid further action. I stared at the letter, dumbfounded. Buddy? A nuisance? He didn't bark excessively. He didn't dig up lawns. He didn't jump fences. The worst thing he ever did was drop his slobbery tennis ball at your feet and stare at you until you threw it. I called the HOA office immediately. Hi, this is Chris. I just got a notice about my dog. I think there's been a mistake. The woman on the phone, let's call her Karen, because of course her name was Karen, sighed like I was inconveniencing her. No mistake, she said. We've had complaints about your animal. From who? I asked. I can't disclose that, she snapped. But multiple neighbors have said your dog is disruptive. I nearly laughed. Disruptive? He sleeps most of the day. He doesn't even bark when the mailman comes. Karen cut me off. You have 30 days to comply. Otherwise, fines will be issued and legal action may follow. I hung up in disbelief. Buddy sat next to me, wagging his tail, completely oblivious that some nosy neighbor had just declared war on him. There was no way I was rehoming my dog. I started asking around. Most of my neighbors were friendly enough, and when I brought up the complaint, they were shocked. Buddy? He's the sweetest dog on the block, one neighbor said. My kids love him. He's never caused any trouble, said another. That's when I realized what was really happening. This wasn't about Buddy. This was about power. Someone on the board, probably Karen, had decided they didn't like me. And they were using Buddy as their excuse. I wasn't about to give in. I gathered character statements from my neighbors, documenting that Buddy was well-behaved and not a nuisance. I sent the letters to the HOA with a firm note. Buddy is not in violation of any community standards. Any attempt to remove him will be considered harassment. I didn't hear back for weeks. I thought maybe, just maybe, they had dropped it. I was wrong. A few months later, another letter arrived. This time it wasn't about Buddy. It was about money. The HOA claimed I hadn't paid my dues. Not only that, but they said I owed late fees for several months. Fees that totaled nearly double the original amount. Here's the kicker, I had paid. Every single time. I even had canceled checks from my bank to prove it. The problem? The HOA hadn't cashed the checks. They'd been sitting on them for months. And when I finally closed that account and moved my money, the old checks bounced. So now they were trying to fine me for their incompetence. I called Karen again. This isn't my problem, I said. You should have cashed the checks when I sent them. Well, that's not how it works, she sniffed. The checks bounced, so you're responsible for the fees. No, I shot back. I'm responsible for paying dues on time. Which I did. You're responsible for processing payments. Which you didn't. Not my problem. She didn't like that answer. Within a week, I had a stack of violation notices. Unpaid dues, late fees, bounced check charges. They were trying to bleed me dry. At this point, I knew I was dealing with crooks. They wanted my money, they wanted me to get rid of my dog, and they wanted to make me miserable. But what they didn't realize was that I had been documenting everything. Every letter. Every canceled check. Every voicemail. Every neighbor's statement about Buddy. I even had screenshots of my bank transactions showing the checks had been sent on time. It was time to fight back. I spent weeks researching HOA law in my state. And let me tell you, these associations love to act like they're all powerful, but they're not. They're bound by laws just like anyone else. And in my state, there were very clear protections for homeowners against exactly this kind of abuse. I learned 3 key things. 1. HOAs cannot enforce rules that are vague or arbitrary, like calling a dog a nuisance without proof. 2. HOAs must process payments in a timely manner, and failure to do so is considered negligence. 3. Homeowners can file civil suits for harassment, breach of fiduciary duty, and even emotional distress. Armed with this knowledge, I drafted a letter to the board. My letter was short, sharp, and to the point. This is a formal notice that your repeated attempts to force me to rehome my dog are baseless and constitute harassment. Additionally, your failure to process my dues payments in a timely manner, and subsequent attempts to fine me for your negligence, are unlawful. If these actions do not cease immediately, I will pursue legal remedies, including but not limited to civil litigation, damages, and recovery of attorney fees. I copied the letter to the board, the HOA's management company, and, just to twist the knife, a local news station that had covered HOA abuse stories in the past. The board didn't respond. But Karen? Well, she did. She left me a voicemail dripping with venom. You think you're smart, don't you? Well, good luck fighting the entire board. We'll see who wins. Challenge accepted. I hired a lawyer. Expensive? Yes. Worth it? Absolutely. We filed a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, negligence, and breach of fiduciary duty. My lawyer attached every piece of evidence I had. The bounce checks, the letters, the neighbors' statements, everything. The HOA was served. And suddenly their tone changed. Karen stopped calling. The violation notices stopped arriving. Instead, I got a letter from the HOA's attorney, begging me to settle. But I wasn't interested in settling. Not after what they put me through. We went to court. The day of the hearing, I walked in with my lawyer and a stack of binders. The HOA board showed up with their attorney looking smug. That smugness didn't last long. My lawyer laid out everything. He showed the judge proof that I'd paid on time. He showed the character letters about Buddy. He even played Karen's voicemail, the one where she practically admitted they were targeting me. The judge's face grew darker with every piece of evidence. When it was the HOA's turn, their attorney tried to argue that the bounce checks were my fault. The judge cut him off. Why didn't your client process the checks when they were received? The attorney stammered. Well, administrative backlog. The judge slammed his gavel. That is negligence. Pure and simple. Then came the dog issue. The HOA tried to claim Buddy was disruptive. The judge asked for evidence. They had none. Meanwhile, I had letters from 6 neighbors praising Buddy's behavior. The judge didn't mince words. This board has clearly abused its authority. This case is dismissed in favor of the homeowner. Additionally, I am ordering the HOA to pay the plaintiff's legal fees. I almost laughed out loud. The fallout was glorious. The HOA had to pay thousands in legal fees, mine and theirs. My dues were marked as current. All the bogus fines were wiped clean. And the rule about nuisance pets was rewritten to require actual documented proof of disruption. As for Karen, she resigned from the board a few months later. Rumor had it she left in disgrace after other homeowners found out she had cost the association so much money. Buddy still lounged in the backyard, chasing tennis balls and wagging his tail, completely oblivious that he had been at the center of a war. And me? I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, smiling as I watched Karen drive past with her head down. Because at the end of the day, I had won. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever had to deal with an HOA that thought they were above the law. And that's today's story from Tales of Revenge. So what do you think? Was the HOA just power hungry, or did Karen really have it out for me personally? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another juicy tale of HOA drama, entitled Neighbors and Sweet, Sweet Revenge. Until next time, Stand your ground, know your rights, and never let anyone take your best friend away.